The whole AI trend is the overhyped in short term and underhyped long term.
Welcome to How AI Happens, a podcast where experts explain their work at the cutting edge of artificial intelligence. You'll hear from AI researchers, data scientists, and machine learning engineers as they get technical about the most exciting developments in their field and the challenges they're facing along the way. I'm your host, Rob Stevenson, and we're about to learn how AI happens. Okay, here we go again. How AI Happens is back in action with another fantastic guest who I'm really excited to speak with today. In between the time we first met and this recording, he has ascended from his role as VPE of Xactly and Head of Technology to his current role where he is the SVP of Engineering and General Manager of Xactly India. Kandarp Desai. Kandarp, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Thank you, Rob. I'm doing great.
I'm really pleased to have you. And hey, congrats on the new role.
Thank you very much.
So where did the new role and promotion come from? Was this a long time coming? Was this a surprise? Love to know a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So before going there, I'll tell you a little bit of my journey and how I started my career and give you like 2 minutes preview of that. So I started my career as the hardware engineer. Soon enough, I realized that this is not me. So I moved into a software world, joined a startup for building the real-time ads, a bidding platform for ads. And during that evolution of the startup played a different role. I was fortunate to have good mentors and a good tech at the time, getting a flavor of exposure for big data in an early stage. And soon then I realized that, well, I want to really explore the enterprise SaaS business because it was the early days of that. And so I joined Xactly to run the SMB business unit, grew that SMB business unit, and right around the same time, I was the first one to pioneer data platform at Xactly to figure out how do we monetize Xactly data. And again, I'm fortunate enough that leadership trusted me to make the transition. So I transitioned from that role to a pure data platform, sort of an architect management role, eventually delivered those products and moved to a larger role of managing the engineering worldwide. Did that role for some time, and our new CEO, Arnab Mishra, trusted me with this role of managing the entire engineering and operations, as well as our India region. And the story behind it is we are expanding in our India region, our presence, not just in engineering, but a lot of other areas like product management, customer support, the professional services, the product marketing, right? So we are hiring really fast here, and we needed someone as a part of the executive staff who can oversee these operations. And while discussing with machine learning leadership and CEO, I felt I was really interested in joining this role. So happens to be the right person at the right time, in the right place. So quite fortunate myself.
So humble, yeah. Kandarp. And hey, congrats on the new gig. And when we first spoke, you were calling me from Mountain View, California. Now you're dialing in from Bangalore, India. So a big change, geographically, if nothing else. But is this role different in terms of focus, or is it more like a geographic and scope thing? Is it more like, okay, can you do the same thing you were doing in Mountain View, just do it in a new hemisphere? Or is there a shift in your sort of overall purview and focus as well?
It's a great question, Rob. It's an expanded role because being in Mountain View, I cannot sort of oversee the India operations, right? At the growth, starting from the strategy in terms of how do we grow, starting to terms of like what are some of the local market look like. They're doing the analysis, working with the local leaders, figuring it out, what strategy would work and what's not, right? Which region is now ready to be a next Bangalore, right? And how do we expand in those regions as well and take those early leap, right? Before it gets really crowded, right? And attract the right talent to achieve the company's goal in 18 to 24 to 36 months. So it's quite crucial for us as this is, one of the biggest centers for Xactly to execute their entire growth strategy.
Now, I don't have to tell you about the lightning speed with which India has modernized kind of in the last 20, 30 years when you look at things like widespread internet access, even like public transit, when you look at the growth and all of these, the way that people are able to move around. It's been really interesting to watch. Is it in the DNA a little bit to have the presence in India? Is this like a new investment because there is so much more talent there? Where do you think this strategy comes from?
So, Xactly India has been a part of an Xactly strategy for quite a while now. But what happened during the last 5 to 6 years, especially around before COVID and maybe around that time, we see a significant growth in the talent that we can hire, right? In terms not just from engineering, but the other departments, the growth in the product management role in India, the growth of, highly technical customer support, the growth of the highly technical field engineering roles, right? All those like product marketing, people are running, a lot of SDRs from here. So all those growth we have seen and seen a lot of promises, which has helped us to solidify our belief that, this market is right now ready to be tapped in, considering the large pool of talent all across the board.
Yeah, I mean, Xactly is a company I assume people will be familiar with. I'm certainly familiar with it, even just scanning the Denver skyline where I live. You guys have a huge presence here, as well as Mountain View, as well as Bangalore and other places in India coming soon, it sounds like. So I would just love to know a bit more, Kandarp, about what is the AI of it all over there at Xactly. There's a lot of different products going on. Obviously, you're in charge of ramping up not just engineering presence, but it sounds like customer success and other areas. So I would just love to hear about the technological reality over there.
I would definitely start with the overall just an intro on the Xactly's core mission, right? Xactly is basically comprehensive intelligent revenue platform, leverages a data-driven approach to provide a timely insights across the entire SPM, sales performance management value chain. And we have helped more than 1,200 customers in 100 different countries and millions of sellers around the world to meet their revenue target. The journey of our AI started when I mentioned about our data project. So back in the days, we were thinking about how do we monetize the data. And we were founded day one a multi-tenant SaaS, right? So we were fortunate enough to have that architecture in place. We were able to gather the data, create the data lake in early days, and start to analyze our data. How can we derive a lot more value to our customers? Xactly Insights and Xactly Benchmark was one of the first flavor of some of our machine learning algorithm, where we were helping our customers to determine some of the efficiency in their quota, then their plan, in the benchmark, as well as helping them to see, okay, why a sales rep is churning, right? So we call it churn algorithm. Like, what's the probability of someone leaving the company, especially in the sales world? So we devised that machine learning algorithm based on a a lot of parameters. Now, recently, with the boom of the whole generative AI, we took a leapfrog and has created a product called Xactly AI Copilot, which is the industry's first generative AI engine. So let's say a salesperson gets their comp report, right, the incentive plan. They have to go through a lot of various, numbers on it. What if they can chat with their comp report, not just an existing, but they can historically really communicate with the comp report. Think about where they can ask questions, where they can get a result of why am I getting paid, this deal I'm getting paid like X amount of dollars versus Y amount of, right? And it is generic across the world, which is like, we have a presence in sellers from 130 different countries. So they all can use a Copilot to interact with their sales data. The second persona is a comp admin, where they can increase their operational efficiency through the proactive AI-driven tool. To give a specific example, so let's say, when a salesperson has some questions about their comp as well as their commissions, they ask comp admin, so why I'm getting paid this much deal, or like I thought my commission system was right? What if they can actually automate the entire process and help and maintain the efficiency for the entire, end-to-end comp process? The third one is a finance professional, which gains the immediate visibility into financial risk and make a strategic course correction. Like, what if our AI Copilot can give end-to-end view of how the revenue management operates, right? And the finance professional can look at their entire FP&A flow, including the revenue, including the commissions, including the sales forecasting, together in a single, pane of glass. And the fourth, which is sort of most important, is the revenue management leaders. They can leverage an insights and industry trend to optimize sort of a pay for performance and sort of design a motivating comp plans aligned with their sales objectives. Like, they have the entire company in the sales objectives. They can align their goals using our Copilot and plug it in their strategic goal along with their compensation goals and create the end-to-end, comp plan, which is aligned well to their vision and the strategy. So these are the four main personas for the AI Copilot.
Got it. Now, it does feel like the Copilot trend, I guess, I don't know, just use case is just very common. It feels like every company kind of needs one. I'm curious, like for you on your side, I'm sure you're very like intimately aware of in all of those personas, like who those people are and the problems they're having. What made it clear that like this is something that they needed, that generative could help these people?
That's a great point, because I think everyone knows that every company has like, there is a use case, right? But it's only useful if it drives a higher customer satisfaction. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. So one of the things we have seen oftentimes heard the stories from our customers as well as prospect and comp admins is they spend a lot of time figuring it out, explaining the commissions plan. They spend a lot of time explaining the sales professionals how their incentive statement look like, why the difference in the deal, why they're getting deltas, right? If we are using prior period processing, why certain holds are in a certain way, why its release happened, why clawback happened, why draws happened, right? So if somehow we can automate their entire process, and Gen AI can do that using the data, using the attribute, and learning historic, incentive statement, learning more about the attributes of the company's comp plans, and the entire process can be automated in a manner that the questions the reps are asking to the comp folks that can reduce significantly, which will free up the comp admin's time, to do a lot more, I wouldn't call it productive, but a lot more things that can actually drive a better efficiency as well as the better revenue. So that's one of the use cases. So we have done analysis like this, over the period. We are still doing it in process of doing, right? One of the other use case which I would like to mention is Xactly just launched an enterprise platform called Xactly Extend, where our partners and customers can build custom apps. And this is a low touch, to no touch environment. And oftentimes we have seen is while this is always we call it no touch, but there is always some customization that is needed in order to create certain reports, in order to create certain queries, in order to create certain authorization, right? What if a customers or even our partners can use the contextual way to create those rules? What if our partners can use say, well, okay, create a plan with 3 different quotas, with X number of people, with this attainment and that, and if we can create the entire plan with just using our Extend platform, right? It drives a lot more, I'd call an overall efficiency and make their changes and process much faster on a day-to-day basis.
I'm glad you began that response by saying that unless it has a business outcome, it kind of doesn't matter. And that's a reality that I feel like I try and remind folks of on this show. There are cases where you may be in a research capacity and you may be able to work on things because they are cool and fun, and cool and fun and new. But for lots of people who are in a role like yours or who are in a practitioner type role, internal at a company, you are going to have to justify your work with like, this delivers value to people. And that is unfortunately a different skill set to identify that and communicate that. It's very different than I think the skill set that a lot of people have been developing. It's this more business mindset. Like you are going to have to convince the finance people in your organization, right? You're going to have to convince the salespeople that are going to have to go tell people why they should want this, right? For you, as you are trying to move beyond this, like, well, look, it's a, it's a chatbot. It uses machine learning and it can pull other, various parts of your sales pipeline together. Isn't that neat? And I can hear like the objection, like, well, it's very neat, Kandarp, but as an old boss of mine would say, but what's it got to do with the price of cheese in Wisconsin? And so for you, how have you kind of made that shift? Because it sounds like, especially with this new role, that it is more business and finance oriented. How has that kind of worked its way into your skill set and played a part in your career?
Yeah, I think justifying the ROI of anything is generally, as you mentioned, hard, right? And somehow, if we can tie back any new invention back to this ROI and customer satisfaction, that can drive an easy sell across the organization. But the way I generally look at it is, at first, okay, is it something my customer wants, right? The second, how much is going to cost me, right? The third, how is going to help me in retention? And fourth, how is going to help me in either upsell or cross-sell or getting more deals, right? And each and every of this thread has a different like parameters that we have to adjust in order to determine if it's something that we want or not, right? To give an example of going back to Nextend platform where we are launching, where they can build these custom apps using just, interactive chatbot, where when we initially launched this platform, we found it's really powerful and subset of our power users really using really nicely, right? Then we introduced to our internal team, there's a lot of feedback we receive. You say, great, this is great. I can do it in X amount of time. But if I can reduce the time to, let's say, by 2x or 3x or 4x, right? I can save the time and actually work on a business case rather than building an app. So now they're actually solving a business case, not just spending a time on building the actual app, right? So then, okay, wait, this is awesome because now the way we can sell it to our customers or we can convince internally why this is important is actually we are spending time on building a business case, we're not building an app, right? That's just, table stake, and Xactly is providing a simple interface to do it. Now, once you build an app, when you go to next year, you will have to make some changes to that, plans. What if that is also interactive? Right now, on an average, when we say a comp admin spends significant amount of time in changing the comp plans, what if we can completely automate that and reduce their time by 90%? That is a productivity gain. That is an efficiency gain, right? And once we prove that with an internal team, it's an easy sell for anyone on the executive side. Say, guys, it's time we spend this money on it because here's a POC, here's what we're saving, here's an ROI. This is how we're gonna build it. And I would say, Rob, there's a way, if we look at the existing trends on the Gen AI side, there are 5 different tracks where industry is tracking towards the true, kind of an AGI, the augmented, complete intelligence, right? And what that is first the chatbots. The second is what they call the reasoners. The third is an agent. Fourth is the innovator. And fifth is the complete autonomy, right? And this is coming from, I was listening to on the podcast, and there's an executive I was talking about the different layers and how OpenAI, which is one of the leaders, and now we have so many other leaders who are actually, inventing really fast, but they talk about what is the first level. It's basically, it says that, it's just chatbots where we are right now. There are some companies who are moving to reasoners that can perform a basic problem solving. And it's a sort of on a human level, what you call a doctorate degree, right? Which is like, okay, this is master now. We're moving to a doctorate degree. And third level, they call it is an agents. Basically, they can perform several days of a various activities efficiently. At the time, you have to make modification. And the fourth, which I say in a way, is they can do an invention. New invention can be performed by learning history. And the fifth, what they call is like complete autonomy, which is, scary, but it's kind of fascinating to see.
Thank you for laying that out. It kind of leads me into, Kandarp, this article that came out in The Economist yesterday, the day before. Maybe you saw it. It's called Artificial Intelligence is Losing Hype. Did you see this one? I probably should have sent it to you sooner. If you didn't see it, the thesis is basically like, okay, VC money is drying up. There's only like 4% of tech workers or people say that they're even using AI in their daily life. And that maybe this was all just a bunch of hullabaloo and AI is not going to change the world, blah, blah, blah. And I'll give you a truncated take of mine before I want to hear yours. But, not to pat myself on the back, but I think I probably speak to more tech leaders than this, or at least as many tech leaders as this writer for The Economist. And my gut is that people like you and other tech leaders would read that headline and be like, good, leave us alone to do our work in peace. And that these timeframes are like a lot longer than, it's like, since what they're talking about, the hype is basically since ChatGPT came out, less than a year ago. So I don't know, I would just love to hear you reflect, having not read the article, but this perception that AI was a bunch of hype and that the hype is fading, if you have a take on that.
No, I think that's a great question. And that's just I haven't read it. Please send me the article, but I have been part of some, internal groups and where we had this discussion. And the way I described generally is the AI trend is the overhyped in short term and underhyped long term. And it's just like oversell recently, and people are still trying to figure it out. And a lot of areas, there are a lot of other areas which we haven't explored, like the privacy side of it or security side of it, right? And all those things are still open question. How would various laws would react or change in a different countries in a different way? What's going to happen? So all those things that people are still figuring it out, right? But I think there are certain areas which I feel people are actively using it. To give an example of, we are actively using a GitHub Copilot, which to augment some of our coding practices. And some of the basic things that has helped us to accelerate our development velocity has been phenomenal, right? To give an example of, let's say, a developer creating a test case to have 1 million records, they have to write something before. Now it's just a matter of 30 seconds. They're using a tool to write it. It creates sort of testing, data for them to manipulate, right? So I think under developer community is definitely seeing that flashes of progress slowly, but I don't think it's as same speed as been told a year ago. Absolutely not, right? On the business side, they're yet to see it. They're yet to on the business front, they're not seeing that benefit. I think the way or any leader I would advise to show that benefit to your business side of the world is, let's take an example of even, the GitHub Code or any coding helper or the Gen AI tool which can help you in a code. Think about how much time it takes to write one line of code. Let's just say 2 minutes, right? And if you take a look, let's say in a week, a developer is using this tool to help it in coding, and the tool is generating 1,000 lines, right? And if you say 2 minutes to write, one line, or 1 minute to write one line, whatever that measure says, just multiply that with developers' hourly rate, and that's your savings, right? Now, if you add it up to your 200, 300, 2,000, 3,000, 20,000 engineers in your company, collectively, you can present a case and look at the dollar amount of efficiency we are saving, which you can reinvest in invention, we can reinvest in growing your revenue, right? So it's getting there, but quantifying that value is hard right now, right? As you said, I'm a little happy because the pressure is a little off because you have some time. It's not going to be well, okay, we're going to leave behind and you don't know what's going on. And so there's still time. So I think the whole developer engineering community is just, getting some time to make sure that they can build the right solution, right? I'm extremely optimistic, as I said, about the Gen AI and the future of it. It's just going to slowly take up from the engineering to the business side.
Yeah, I'm sure they're onto something, this article, in terms of a pullback of expectations, but that's probably good. Those are maybe some actors with some bad incentives or with some short-term perspectives. And it's right, this was not to be a gold rush, and the people who expected it and who tried to, pigeonhole AI into everything are now finding out what you just said. That is this is a longer term thing, and that you can't just plug an LLM into your company and then question mark profit,
Right.
Well, Kandarp, here, before I let you go, I just wanted to ask you quickly, because you have this new gig and that you are kind of combining your technical and business know-how. I was just hoping that you could pass along some career wisdom for the folks out there, the AI practitioners listening who are trying to forge a career in the space. What kind of advice would you give them as they try and build a meaningful career?
Yeah, great question. So I would say there are a few things. Definitely, I would say do not afraid to take a leap. Been presented with you, there is a reason. I believe in destiny. There's always, something good that's happening to you. So I would say do not doubt yourself. I think everyone has an equal capacity to excel and beat their own expectation. That's one thing. The second piece is meet people, network. That's the best way to learn about what's going on in the industry, right? You're not going to be able to learn by just reading the news. You need to meet people, go to conference, have the podcast, listen to podcasts to understand what's going on, around the world, right? Second, and have right mentors. Right mentors, those plays a key role. And the way you can find mentors is, of course, meeting with people and asking them. The tech community or any outside community in general, you'll be surprised how helpful and humble the community is. It's phenomenal, the help you can get.
I've definitely found that speaking to people, and networking and, meeting people, connecting in the space will always help. And so for that, everyone out there listening, if you'd like to connect with Kandarp, his personal cell phone number is 650. No, I'm kidding. I won't dox you. I won't dox you like that. But hey, Kandarp, thanks so much for being here on the podcast. This has been fun chatting with you today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rob. See ya.
How AI Happens is brought to you by Sama.
Sama's agile data labeling and model evaluation solutions help enterprise companies maximize the return on investment for generative AI, LLM, and computer vision models across retail, finance, automotive, and many other industries. For more information, head to sama.com.